Welcome to Intuitive Transformations with your host, Sylvia Henderson, and discover tools, wisdom, and inspiration that will empower you to transform your life. Sylvia is an intuitive life coach and energy healer with a growing practice that is focused on empowering others to be more of who they want to be. For the next hour, join Sylvia and explore and unravel anything in the way of you creating the life that you would love to live on the OMTimes Radio Network.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Intuitive Transformations radio show, where you will find tools that you can use to change and transform your life right here on the OMTimes radio network, the voice of consciousness at OMTimes.com. I am Sylvia Henderson, your host, and I am an intuitive life coach and an energy healer residing in Kirkland, Washington. And I work with clients from around the globe, either in person, by phone, or via Skype. So if you'd like to learn more about me and the work that I do, please feel free to visit my website at intuitivetransformations.net. That's intuitivetransformations.net. So today is Sunday, November 6th, and this is the very last live Sunday evening broadcast of Intuitive Transformations, because starting this Thursday, just a few days away from today on November 10th, the Intuitive Transformations radio show will air live every Thursday afternoon at 2 p.m. Eastern, which is 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time if you live within my time zone on the West Coast. So I am really excited about the new time change because there have been some guests that I've wanted to have on my show who live way across the pond in either England or another surrounding country, and I could not get them on my show because 9 p.m. Eastern, well, it's late for us sometimes here in the United States. It's really the wee hours of the morning for them. It's like 3 or 4 or 2 a.m. their time. So this time change will open the door for me to get you even more tools that you can use from our European authors and healers and spiritual teachers. So this is really very exciting. I can't wait. I have two things that I wanted to share with you today before I bring on my special guest for today's show. The time change was the first one. That was number one. The second thing, which I'm only going to touch on briefly, is that in just 2 days from today, on November 8th, the United States will elect a brand new president, as well as other leaders in government, who will be in charge of ruling and running over all of the internal and external affairs associated with the United States. Now, as you already know, the entire planet is in the midst of a great deal of change and transformation. So first, I want to say that if you are a citizen of the U.S., please vote if you have not yet. And regardless of who you are voting for, please let's all hold the intention that whomever is elected in whatever office they are elected in, from local positions all the way to the White House, that divine unconditional love from the source of all that is and all of the higher angelic realms will govern our country, the United States, my country, for those of you who are not from the U.S., from a very heart-centered space. Now, I realize that the idea that a heart-centered politician sounds a little bit like an oxymoron, especially given this current presidential election. But I want to remind you all that nothing is impossible, and that the potent power we have as spiritual beings in this human experiment is love and compassion. Those are our superpowers. So let's take all of our love and all of our compassion, and let's just pour it out around the world, especially on Tuesday, November 8th. The supreme divine creator of all that is always all allowing. And it is therefore our choice to reach for either fear or to reach for love and compassion. So it is really up to us as members of humankind and as members of the oneness of all that is to send positive intentions that in spite of what it appears to look like, that love will be the prevailing energy. So much that we now see being acted out on the world stage, from climate changes to Standing Rock and this very unique U.S. presidential election, are all just symptoms of the shadow aspects within all of humankind that's calling out for healing and for wholeness. Complacency is no longer really an option. We have to be mindful of our thoughts and our intentions as we speed from the third dimensional mindsets of judgments into the fifth dimensional mindset and energies of oneness. It's a unique experience that we're all going through individually and collectively. And our number one job as we move forward together into our future is to choose our thoughts and focus wisely and consciously. So choose compassion, choose love, choose forgiveness for yourself and for others. And doing this will release the heavy burden of fear and hate, regardless of who is chosen on November 8th. And I'm going to close with this. Vote, 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 because your voice counts. Please use it. It is your opportunity to exercise that right. So how can we gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and begin to really make sense of our lives and how we interact with life? And is it possible to bring clarity to our relationships or even this election and create greater balance within our lives, physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, once we have a deeper understanding of ourselves? Well, today we're going to talk about that and just so much more. I have Dondi Dahlin, author of The 5 Elements, Understand Yourself and Enhance Your Relationships with the Wisdom of the World's Oldest Personality Type System. And she's here today to talk about exactly that and what we can learn from this ancient Chinese system that is the foundation for Chinese medicine. Now, before I bring Dandi on, I want to tell you a little bit about her. She is an author, a speaker, and an internationally acclaimed dancer, actress, and teacher. She co-authored the Little Book of Energy Medicine with her mother, energy medicine pioneer Donna Eden, and she heads the Teach the Teacher program for the Eden Energy Medicine Certification Program located in Phoenix, Arizona. Dandi is an award-winning public speaker and internationally acclaimed dancer, author, and I lost my place, in television, film, and stage, and has been a member of the Screen Actors Guild since 1991. Dandi teaches the 5 elements. She has taught since 2001 at the renowned Omega Institute in New York with her sister Titania Dalan, and other workshops and conferences around the world. Dandi lives in California, where she homeschools her son in a 1904 Victorian folk house that she fought for 2 years to get historically designated and on the historic registry of San Diego. And trust me, that was a done deed. Welcome, Dandi, to the Intuitive Transformations radio show.
Thank you, Sylvia. You're delightful. I love your introduction from the start all the way through talking about this crazy world and our politicians to the introduction of me. Just beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I so appreciate and value you taking the time with me and my listeners to talk about the 5 elements. So you have lived a very full life of wonderful adventures, and those who read your book will discover all of that. Everything from dancing for celebrities and well-known personalities and acting on television, film, and on stage. And to top it all off, you're Donna Eden's daughter. Also, you traveled around the world.
That's the best part.
I know, right? You travel around the world empowering people to heal their lives, and you live in a historically designated home. Just one of those experiences, what I call pretty cool, but to have all of them is like amazingly awesome. So I'm just really curious. How has your understanding of the 5 elements assisted you in achieving all that you have and experienced in your life?
Oh my gosh, the 5 elements have been with me since I was a little girl. My mom raised me and my sister Titania in them, and I have had a very full life, a very blessed life, and a very unique life because of who my mom is. She's a healer. She sees energies in the body. She can see pain and illness as well as health. And so from a young age, we would go around the world with her, watching her teach. And now me and my sister teach as well. And then I had my own career in show business and movies and stage and dancing around the world. And through all of this, I always had the 5 elements to guide me through all the weirdness, all the crazy relationships. Many times I had to be my own manager when I worked in the Middle East and Europe and overseas. And the 5 elements was oftentimes my strength and my backbone when I was in, strange situations or delicate situations. The 5 elements of water, wood, fire, earth, and metal help everybody, and they can help all of your listeners to have better relationships and a more joyful, productive, beautiful life.
I love all of that because you speak about this with such incredible passion and joy and conviction. And, I know we're going to be going into a break very soon, but I just wanted to say, and I shared this with you before we started the show, is that, I studied Chinese medicine in massage school and 5 elements. And I tell you, it wasn't taught the way you talk about it. So I'm really excited for us to dive deeper as we continue in this show this evening. And I just want to let everyone know that we're talking with Dondi Dahlin, and we're talking about her book, The 5 Elements, Understand Yourself and Enhance Your Relationships with the Wisdom of the World's Oldest Personality Type System. We'll be back in just a few moments. Please stay tuned for more.
The future of Internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
Hello, I'm Miriam Knight of New Consciousness Review, inviting you to my new show where I interview the rising stars of the conscious awakening. We'll explore the many faces of consciousness in action and intriguing perspectives on life, the universe, and everything in between. Join us each Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern on the Rising Stars Show.
When I was little, I didn't talk for a long time. I was sensitive to lights and sounds, so I built secret hiding places where they couldn't get in. Sometimes I did the same things over and over, until one day I found out I had autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I learned how to live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Sylvia Henderson with the Intuitive Transformation Show and my very special guest, Dondi Dahlin. And we're talking about her new book, The 5 Elements, and how you can use this wisdom and information to truly enhance your life and your relationships. So, Dondi, let's start with the foreword that was written by your book, beautifully written by your mom. I'm sorry, written about your book, beautifully written by your mom. And she mentioned that the 5 elements was really the most common and interesting conversation that you had in your home. So this was really a very closely investigated topic.
Yes. So my mom learned the 5 elements. Well, let me back up and say that my mom always saw the energy of elements in people. She just didn't know what to call it. She has seen energy all her life. This is how she was born. And she would see that people fell into a certain vibration. Now, she didn't have the words or the terms of water, wood, fire, earth, and metal, but she knew, without having the term of the earth person, that all of these people kind of fell under the same behaviors, the same actions. They looked similar in their body type and their face type. And then in the early 1980s, she met a woman named Nancy Post, who brings the 5 elements into corporations and businesses. And she said to my mom, what you're seeing is the 5 elements. And she started to give terms to everything my mom was seeing in the elements. And to go back even farther, so your listeners know if they're new to the elements, these are from China, and they're well over 2,000 years old. These are elements that Chinese physicians saw that everybody on Earth could fall into, especially under stress. And so they would put people into kind of the categories of water, wood, fire, earth, and metal. But I do want to say, because the word category scares people, this is not a system that boxes people in. It's the exact opposite. It's an incredible system that grows compassion for yourself, for your work colleagues, for your friends. So Mom started teaching me and my sister the 5 elements. And she taught us the elements with a lot of other systems that she worked in. My mom has always been able to see chakras and meridians, these systems in the body. My mom sees the aura when she's walking down the street. She sees everybody's aura, how it's moving, what colors the aura is. And so the 5 elements was just one more system that she was teaching around the world, and it's the one that me and my sister loved the most. We always wanted Mom to talk about it more and more and more. And by the time I was in my 20s, oh my gosh, I was realizing that I was using the 5 elements very much as a personality type system to figure out people in my life, whether it was a boyfriend or somebody at work or somebody I was in a commercial with because I was in show business. I was using the 5 elements to help my relationships and to really help me predict people's behaviors. So the 5 elements is a health system, and some people dive into it through acupuncture and massage, like you said that you did, Sylvia. And some people dive into it as a personality type system. It's both, which makes it really rich.
And I love it because it really speaks of not so much identifying that one element, but it's about bringing balance too when you integrate it in your own personal life, as well as understanding relationships. Yeah.
Yes, it's all about the balance. When I was little, I was very, very strong in the water element, and I was kind of being hit with all the pitfalls of water, all the challenges. Every element has a challenge. And when I was able to balance some of those challenges, like self-pity, complaining, whining, being depressed, when I learned how to balance that with my other element, which was wood, and I brought out my wood and allowed it to blossom, my life completely changed. I became a different person.
You know, I like how you mentioned that when you were younger, you were water, but you were able to bring balance, which brought in more of that sturdy wood energy, that growth energy, and being more seen. I know that when I was going through massage school, I was going through a divorce as well. And interestingly enough, I took your quiz in the book, and it's quite different from when I took it back then, because back then it was mostly water, but there was a lot of emotional things going on there. So can your external experience or where you are in your life in the moment affect the outcome of what element you're playing into?
Yes, absolutely. And I have a quiz on my website at learnthefiveelements.com that everybody can take. It's free. But I often tell people, take it again if you're in a difficult phase of your life. Take it a year from now. Take it several months from now. For instance, I'll take the experience of death. If somebody has just experienced a death in their life, and they're going to the funeral and the burial and the viewing, and they're going through the whole process of letting that loved one go, that is a very metal phase. The metal element is about release and letting go. It's also about the end of life and death. And so somebody may be a fire metal combination, but when their experience is all death in their life, their fire is going to get a little, it's going to be put in the shadows, let's say, and they'll feel metal much more strongly. I like to let people know that, to balance the 5 elements can just be life-changing for you. And then when you go through these stressful experiences, the stress does not hit you as hard. It doesn't knock you off your feet because you have these tangible tools. It's a roadmap to help you through life. And I'll give one quick example. My mom, who is very fire and earth. So her voice is like this, and she hugs everybody, and she loves life, and she tells everybody how much she loves them, and she loves touching people. Very opposite than me. I'm not a big hugger. I don't like putting my hands on people's shoulders. I don't want them to put their hands on mine, especially when I'm in my wood space. But that is a fire and an earth. However, in business, when my mom needs to be more metal, because metals are very good in business, she will shut her eyes and she'll say, I'm going to be a metal today, and I'm going to be Meryl Streep, because Meryl Streep has a lot of metal. And so if you see Meryl Streep outside of her film roles and interviews and things, she has metal. And so Mom will say, I am Meryl Streep today. And she'll drop into that metal energy of being calm, cool, collected, stoic, meeting life where it's at. And so, that's a funny little way to do it, but it's helpful and it's simple. And it's really, like I said, a roadmap in life to know the elements.
So let's talk about the elements specifically, starting with water. What are some of the attributes that one might discover about the personality of someone when they're very strongly water element?
Yes, so some of the attributes for a water are amazingly deep and complex. These are creative people, intuitive people. They love meaning in metaphor, in words, in language. They listen to what people say, and they are very affected by the tones that people use in their voices. That means something to a water person. And so you can imagine that sometimes they read between the lines. The water person is a person who really needs to come back and restore to themselves. They are that person who can lose their energy. And so I know this may not sound like an attribute, but it is an attribute when you know you're a water and you know that there is nothing wrong with you when you need to come back to yourself and be alone. It's an attribute and a blessing to know that we're all somewhat held by these elemental energies, and waters need time and space to regain their energy in themselves. And so those are some of the attributes of a water. Would you like me to quickly go through the attributes of each element?
Yes, that would be fantastic.
Okay, let's just hit them all, and then I'm happy to share some of the challenges or some of the health challenges too if we have time. So the next one is wood. Let me go back to water for a second because it helps people to know that each element has an archetype, and the archetype of water is the philosopher. And so you can start to envision that deep thinker, that person who really is curious and who is very interested in the meaning of life. They aren't a hurried person like the wood, who is next. Woods are on a mission. They usually are hurried. They're very urgent to get to their next goal. They're confident. They do great under pressure. And so you can imagine that woods do very well in corporations and businesses. Their archetype is the pioneer. So they're going to do things first, and they're going to do things very well. Next in line is fire. The archetype for fire is the wizard, or we'll say the life of the party, very full of happiness and joy, wanting to connect with people. And life is a celebration to the fire. Whereas, remember, going back to the water, life is about meaning. For wood, life is about accomplishing goals. And the fire, it's a party. It's a celebration. It's beautiful. And it's love, and it's positive. And fires have lots of charisma, and they're always able to warm up other people and bring them over to joy. Beautiful element. The earth element is next. And earths are similar to fires. They love that connection between people. I would say fires are a little bit bigger in this energy. They like the social life, whereas earths are a little bit more mellow about it. They're the caretaker. That's their archetype, the caretaker, the person who is always going to be there for you. They are the shoulder you can lean on. They're calm, they're devoted, they're loyal, and they really value connection between people, not just people sitting together, but real soul and heart connection. And then the last element is the metal. And the metal archetype is the queen or the alchemist. So it's very proud, very reverent. These people meet life where it's at. They never get too ruffled. They seem very sophisticated. Sometimes it seems like they're floating above the rest of us. And the metal people are really on a solo journey. They're often doing their work alone or living alone. It's like life is a solo journey for them. And so I've said all 5 elements, but keep in mind, everybody has a combination. Usually people have 2 strong elements, and we call it their primary and their secondary. And so there will be a very strong combination of those 2, and then the other 3 will come in at different times in their life, or like you said earlier, in different phases of their life.
So, Dandi, when we return, I'd like to continue this conversation about how the elements impact one another. So, right after the break, we'll be back with more of Dondi Dahlin, and we're going to talk about how these elements actually relate in our relationships and within our own personalities. We'll be back for more in just a moment.
The cutting edge of conscious radio, OMTimes Radio, IOM FM. As difficult as it is to believe, there are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Hey, let me ask you something. Would you seat your 3-year-old child on a windowsill? Would you seat them beside a lit fireplace or by the deep end of a pool? One last question. Would you seat your child in a car seat that's not correct for them? Car crashes are a leading killer of children ages 1 to 13. Secure their future. Seat them in the correct car seat. For more information, visit safercar.gov/the right seat. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Welcome back, everyone. So before we went to the break, Dandi did a wonderful job sharing the different attributes of each of these 5 elements, which are water, wood, fire, earth, and metal. So, Dandi, I know that in Chinese medicine that certain elements complement and build strength, and other elements create challenges when they're combined. So can you talk a little bit about how the elements interact with one another?
Yes, I will. So when I say this, people listening can have the idea that this can be in themselves and how the elements combine within themselves, or if you're in a relationship with somebody. So if you're an earth person in relationship with a metal person, what does that mean? And like you said, Sylvia, in the 5 elements, there are 2 different cycles. One of the cycles are those elements that support each other, and it's often called the support cycle or the flow cycle. These elements who just flow together. It's like when you just feel good around someone. You may argue, you may fight, but you always come back together. You always get along. You always feel good around each other. You're probably on each other's support cycle. And on the other end of that is the control cycle. These elements who just have a little bit of an extra challenge around each other. They get along, it doesn't mean they can't work together or they can't be married to each other, but it just seems like they push each other's buttons. And sometimes that can mean because you are on each other's control cycle. So let's take a couple of examples. In the support cycle, we have water and wood. We say that water supports wood. What does that mean? A wood person can get very stuck in their ways. They can be described as stubborn. Woods are on a mission. They're on a mission to change the world. They're on a mission to complete goals and fix things. And sometimes they can get a little strict and sharp about it. They can tend to steamroll others. Other people can feel like, wow, that person was kind of insensitive. Well, woods can do that. And a water in relationship with a wood, or if you have these 2 inside yourself, can be very good for a wood because waters tend to go with the flow. They aren't bound by timelines, whereas a wood is always watching the clock. A water is of that ilk of, you know what? Life is just going to come at us as it comes at us. Let's relax. Let's just be with it. Woods are doers. Waters are beers. So these 2 can really complement each other. A water can teach a wood a lot. Now let's take the example of 2 people on each other's control cycle. Let's take the wood and the earth. An earth person is a person who's very kind, they're very loyal, they're very devoted. They don't always have the oomph to speak up for themselves or to be, what we say, to have a strong backbone. They don't always have that. They're the caretaker and they're the peacemaker. They don't like conflict. If they're in relationship with a wood, and a wood person doesn't mind conflict. They don't mind it at all. In fact, I have a friend she's not only a friend, she's an expert in the 5 elements. Her name is Jean Hayner. And she says sometimes it sounds like woods are having little tiny arguments all day long with people. Well, to a wood person, they aren't arguing. They're just communicating. But an earth can feel yelled at. They can feel like, oh my gosh, that wood is trying to control me. And so, again, it doesn't mean that an earth and a wood can't be in relationship with each other. My sister is a very strong earth. I'm a very strong wood. But we've had to find ways to reach each other and to be on each other's same page. It's a little bit more work, but what my mom always says, and by the way, my mom is on the control cycle of her husband. They're fire and metal. And so they are on each other's control cycle, and my mom says, yes, it was a little harder the first 30 years, but now that we're past 30 years, we're more in love than ever. we have the most incredible, profound, and evolved relationship of any couple on earth, and I would say they do. So you find ways to work with each other. And I'll also say that when you know you're on each other's control cycle, oh my gosh, it's like a big relief. It's like, oh, that person wasn't doing things purposefully to hurt me. That person is a wood. I'm an earth. No wonder we were pushing each other's buttons. And what it also does is it teaches you that rather than needing to hear things the way you want to hear them or see things the way you want to see them, that you're both coming from your own individual perspectives, and you start to honor that. Like I said earlier in the hour, this is a system of compassion, and it really, the 5 elements help you realize that each element sees, hears, feels, and perceives things differently than you do.
That is so good to keep in mind, because it completely depersonalizes interactions where people don't have to, knowing this information allows you to get out of being offended and misunderstood, and just knowing that it's a different perspective completely, and it's not personal.
Exactly. That's right. That's right. So much of our life, we walk around, you know, with our defenses up, and we're so entrenched in our own perspective. And I can say, as a wood type, I would definitely be that way if I didn't have the 5 elements to guide me along. But when you know the 5 elements, you start to really hear the other person's point of view, really understand the other person's point of view, and then you as a person will know what to minimize, what to play up, what to play down, because you know what their triggers are. And so it's like a shortcut to peace before you even deal with the conflict.
It makes a big difference. It really does. I love that. Having that insight is tremendous. And so in your book, you share some really great examples of how the 5 elements show up in some of the very well-known and famous people that we may easily recognize. Can you share some examples of famous people to really help flesh out what each one of the elements would look like? For instance, you already said Meryl Streep was metal. So, starting with water, you know, who would we really identify as being a water element?
Yes, so with water, any of your deepest thinkers, a lot of musicians, remember, waters are really focused on the meaning behind words, behind lyrics, behind tones. It's interesting to remember that this is also a health system. So one of the organs that waters are governed by are the kidneys, and the kidneys govern the ears. And so when you start to learn all of this, you can connect the dots. But some of the more well-known people we would look to, again, any of your folk musicians from the 1960s, thinking about people up through the 80s and 90s like Kurt Cobain, Stevie Nicks, going back to Janis Joplin in terms of actors, Nicolas Cage. Now, Nicolas Cage, when you watch him in interviews, he's slower when he speaks. He doesn't jump on the questions right away. He thinks about them. Sometimes, especially if you're a wood type, you're thinking to yourself, come on, get on with it. All right already. But this is a water's rhythm. It's slower than other people's. They're very highly intelligent, usually very bright on a whole different level, but they process things deeply. And so those are some of the waters. Always thinking about the musicians, because a lot of musicians, especially not so much pop music, but the musicians who write these incredible arias, or some of the classical musicians, every sound has meaning for them. So going on to wood, these are your warriors, your people who I like to say that, you know, woods are really, really into honesty and truth. The problem is that they value that over tact. And so you look to people like Simon Cowell, this man who is the judge on many singing shows on television, and Bill Maher. Bill Maher has some other elements too, and most of these people who I'm talking about do. Rachel Maddow, Pink, the musician Pink. Now, Pink, I love what she says about her music. She has incredible lyrics, and they're often very angry. And she says that her anger fuels her energy to write. Well, anger is the main emotion for Woods. And it's not that Wood people walk around angry, it's that anger actually fuels them. They are the activists. They are the revolutionaries. They are the ones out picketing and trying to make this world a better place. And the anger really, it actually makes Woods feel very good. The problem is when they can't manage that anger well. So always looking to balance things. The fires, you have Ellen DeGeneres, Jim Carrey, Robin Williams, all of your happy people who like to make other people happy. The earths, we have Mr. Rogers, going back to the 1970s on TV. Anyone who lived in North America who will remember Mr. Rogers. He invited us into his home. He made us feel comfortable and safe, and he asked us to be his neighbor and his friend. That's all very earth. And then Pope Francis is a great earth. He also has a lot of water, but Pope Francis is a strong earth, really bringing together people. He's all about compassion. Your metals are going to be people like Angelina Jolie, Benedict Cumberbatch. Let's see, this woman who they call Posh Spice. And Julia Child has a lot of metal. She also has fire, but she has a lot of metal. And the metal people, you know, all of the elements, you can start seeing it in their bodies, because every element has a pretty specific body type and face shape as well. So it just gets more and more beautifully complex.
You know, it's just such a fascinating, so evolved system, and just so easily accessible the way that you've put everything together in your book, Dandi. So I'm just so excited about you bringing forth this wonderful information. So in looking at these elements, I'm curious, and I'm sure you've had these conversations with your mom and other friends. What are the elemental personalities of, say, like Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton? And I don't know if you'll be able to talk. I know we're going to go into a break in just a moment, so I'm going to let you ponder and think about that. And when we return,
Okay.
Maybe you can share some insights on these two presidential candidates. We'll be back in just a moment.
Bringing a more conscious lifestyle to your world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Did you just look down at your phone? You did it again, didn't you? You know, you're flying down the road in a 3-ton hunk of steel, and a text takes your eyes off the road for an average of 5 seconds. At 55 miles per hour, that's long enough to travel the length of a football field and cause some serious damage. Turn it off. Trust me, whatever it is, you'll live.
Learn more at stoptextsstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Well, we're back, and Dandi, did you have an opportunity to ponder that last question?
Yes, I have, and I actually ponder that a lot, and I watch these two. I watch Hillary and I watch Donald, and I do have to give a little caveat before I go into what I think their elements are, and that is that we do not know what they are behind doors. So that is my caveat. Yeah, you know, a lot of times I'm very different in the public eye. I go around the world with my mom, and people see one of my elements. Maybe they'll see me as all water, or on another day they'll see me as all wood, and they can't believe I have any water. But behind closed doors, I sink into a whole different place, and with my son, I'm very earth. And this happens to all of us when we go home. So I have what the media shows me, and I've read a lot. And here's what I have to say about Hillary and Donald. It's very, very interesting that both of them have a lot of wood element. Now, I think where Donald gets trapped, and I'm just speaking factually, and this would be about anybody, if you are very, very strong in only one element, it's going to be a limitation for you. And that's where I see some of his limitations. He is an incredibly strong wood with almost no other elements that come out. He has a little bit of fire sometimes. He has a little bit of metal sometimes, but it's almost all wood. And what happens is when you can't balance that element with any other element, then it becomes, in my opinion, this is my opinion, it becomes imbalanced and unhealthy. And an imbalanced wood can go into a lot of ego, a lot of arrogance, rude comments, very judgmental, doesn't listen, is a bully, and this stands for anyone who is a wood. So Hillary, on the other hand, she also has a lot of wood. She's an incredibly strong woman. I would say, and if anybody looks at history over the last 30 years, that probably no one in politics has had to deal with what she's had to deal with from other people. She's been treated pretty poorly, and she still comes out very strong. That is a wood element for you. She also has the balance of metal and earth. And so that is what I see, these three elements helping to balance her. Now, where you can see her wood is that she has said things like she's afflicted with the responsibility gene. Well, woods are very responsible people. They will not ever, leave anything untied. They will make sure they wrap it up, and they feel responsible for things. So she's very independent, as woods are. And she has the earth and the metal. You can really hear about the earth when her daughter and her husband speak. And that's where you can kind of get a peek of what she might be behind closed doors. It would be great if she brought some more of that to the stage, because the earth especially would show her softness and her vulnerabilities, which I think everybody likes to see in anyone. And then I'll just throw one more into the mix, Tim Kaine, because he is an earthwood, and I love the earthwood combination, I have to say. It's so strong but so gentle at the same time. I mean, he has fought for racial reconciliation. He's devoted he really has devoted his life to fighting for others. This is a balanced wood attribute. When you are a balanced wood, you're going to fight for the underdog. When you're imbalanced, it's going to turn into arrogance and judgment. So, like I said, every element has their attributes and their challenges. But I like Tim Kaine. I like that he's for civil rights and fair housing, and he wants to get things done. That is his wood. Wants to get things done. That's why you have so many politicians who have a lot of wood. A lot of woods are in the limelight. They rise to the top because they are doers. And so you have a lot of woods who are kind of highlighted throughout history. We don't hear about the earths as much in the history books. They're the quiet ones who are into unconditional love, but they aren't always written about in history.
That's fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was incredibly enlightening, and it makes perfect sense. Really.
Yes, you're welcome.
So, Dandi, I can't believe that we are almost at the end of our hour. Can you please share with everyone how they can get in contact with you? I'm sure that they can find your book at Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble, and maybe even from your website. But how can people find out more about you, find out about your upcoming events, and stay connected with you?
Yes, thank you. So the book is The 5 Elements. It can be found everywhere. It's a great size. It's a little bit smaller than other books, so great Christmas present. Slip it into your purse or your bag. My website is learnthefiveelements.com. Learnthefiveelements.com. You can go there, take the quiz. You will get immediate results that pop up on the screen of what your primary and secondary elements are, and then you'll get a little section on reading about those and what that means. And then we have a lot of events coming up. I'll be in Portland, Oregon at New Renaissance Bookstore on November 25th. Let's see, next Saturday I'll be in San Diego at Barnes & Noble Point Loma. As the new year comes in, we will be doing a whole teaching tour. Me, my mom, my sister Titania, my mom's husband David. We will be in Cardiff, Wales. We'll be in London, and we'll be in Lyon, France. That's all in March. And then we're doing a teaching tour in Mexico, and our primary city there will be in Cancun. That's in May of 2017. We teach energy medicine and the 5 elements and energy psychology, and my sister takes my mom's work of energy medicine and puts it to music, and she has energy dance, which is super fun. And so we love when people come out, and you can see all the dates either on my website at learnthefiveelements.com or my mom's website, which is absolutely incredible. You could spend weeks on that website with all the free resources she has, and her website is learnenergymedicine.com. So those are some of the places people can find us. We're also on Facebook. We have a couple different pages. One of the big pages is just called Eden Energy Medicine. If people have health questions and issues, they can come onto that page. And then you can always search for me under my name, Dondi Dahlin. I know it's a kind of a different name. The first name is D-O-N-D-I, and the last name is D-A-H-L-I-N, and it's Swedish, if anyone wants to know, because people always ask.
Well, I am really excited about this information being presented to the general populace because it's pretty much, as you said, been relegated to acupuncturists and massage therapists and our Chinese medicine physicians. And so to give this information to the general population where we can learn how to accept each other's differences and even the differences within ourselves and understand ourselves on a deeper level and how we are interacting and showing up in the world to others. You know, so often we don't know why something happened or why someone said something, and this is a great way to figure that out. You've also have in your book some fantastic tips for parents as well, how they can parent their children based upon the 5 element system. So it's really a really wonderful book. And I have to tell you, I took the test on the website, and then I thought I'm going to take the more detailed test that's in your book, and it took a little bit longer than the website one. But, what, you know, it was really interesting because my numbers there were 3 that were really close together, and there weren't any that were just way out there, except water was a little lower than the others. But I'm just curious about what you might think. So my wood, I tested it like 278, and fire was 234, but then earth was 242. So it was like wood and then earth, and then fire was close third, followed by metal, which I had at 209, and then water didn't make the 200 mark. It was 187, which is interesting because when I was going through my divorce, I was more water.
Right. Well, for me, as soon as I heard your voice, and I've listened to you on the internet as well, and so I got to see your beautiful face, I thought, oh my gosh, she has a lot of earth. You are heart-centered. You're full of love and compassion. You're a life coach. You're an energy healer. You hold good intentions for everybody. You talk about empowering others and giving tools to help others. All of that is so earth and so beautiful. And then the fire really comes out in your voice. You have a lot of laughter. Fires have laughter. They aren't afraid to laugh. It bubbles out of them. And it's a beautiful thing because they really keep the vibration quite joyful. And then your wood I sensed as well. I didn't know it was first. I thought your earth would be first. But your wood comes in because you're very conscious. You talk about being very mindful. So that is really a beautiful, beautiful trait when a wood is balanced because, like you said, there is oneness without judgment. And that is the good earth person. The good wood person. When they're imbalanced, it can go to judgment. But when they're balanced, there is no judgment. And it's all about unconditional love. And I have to say, remember I said earlier in your show, my favorite elemental combination is wood and earth, and you've got both, and then you have that fun fire. I think you're just an amazing person. I've always said that the wood and the earth combination brings strength and gentleness at the same time. The woods are great with boundaries. The earths are great with compassion. So they aren't going to be that type of wood who steamrolls others or is insensitive because you always have the earth there to back you up and always be in the other person's shoes. So you have a great combination. You're so lucky.
Oh, thank you. Well, I will say, I don't think I started that way. I think I had to work into it.
Me too.
So much.
I had to work into the balance. You're welcome. And that's what you do. You learn to balance the elements. And that's what's so amazing. And you may have elements that are kind of deep down in you, and then they come out when you become when you come into your balance and into your evolution as a human being.
Yeah, I think I agree with you 110%. Wow, I cannot believe that we are almost at the end of the hour. Dandi, this has been phenomenal. You are an absolute delight. I'm so excited that your book is out. It's available. I really want to encourage everyone to pick it up. The 5 Elements. It's a beautiful tabletop book, actually. So please go out and get it. Dandi, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
And everyone who's been listening, thank you so much for listening to this show. And remember, I'm live again this week on Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Until then, I love you, I love you, I love you. And vote, 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 vote. Take care and have a fantastic life. Goodbye for now.